Holy smokes, guys. On Fridays, I always tell you, you never know what's going to happen over the weekend. And true to form, it was unbelievable. Trump on fire all weekend. I was able to go to CPAC. I had a great event down in Florida that I spoke at, and then came back and went to CPAC on Saturday. Got to hang out with my old colleague, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and Mercy Schlapp, countless other people that I saw, Elise Stefanik, Patrick Bet-David. I put a bunch of those pictures on my Instagram if you want to go check out. It was kind of cool, though. It's like a college reunion for conservatives every year. You get to go see all the people that you don't necessarily see in person. It was amazing, though. I sat next to the president of Argentina, Milei, and then Prime Minister Duda of Poland's next to him. And I'm trying to remember, it was literally unreal how many people were sitting there. Talked to Mark Levin for a while, but it really is a cool experience because you get to see all of these people on the right that you don't bump into every day, or maybe you text with here and there. And so it's really cool. And then capping it all off, President Trump's speech, unbelievable speech that he gave. Hitting a lot of highlights. I had a conversation. I talked to the president last night. He is in such great spirits. He knows how much he's getting done. He told me, and I generally don't reveal a lot of our conversations, but he said, we're well on track to $1 trillion in savings. It's unbelievable. $1 trillion. And all these Democrats, it's just unbelievable how they sit back and say, like, well, we've always known that there's waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. I'm like, well, then you're basically admitting you did nothing about it. Anyway, it was a great conversation with the president. He has been a huge supporter of mine since I left, and always good to catch up with him in person. Anyway, and by the way, then he kicked off this morning. He had the French President Macron in early for a G7 video conference that dealt with Ukraine. He was up and at him and then spoke with Macron again, had this press conference with him. We have a huge week lined up for you, though. I want to get back to CPAC in a second, but Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee is here tomorrow. Congressman Andy Harris, the head of the Freedom Caucus, he's here. Big budget showdown going down in Congress. We're going to talk to both of them about that. Erica Donalds, the wife of Byron Donalds, who might be the next first lady of Florida. She's going to join us. Selena Zito. She's going to be here on Wednesday as well. Amazing panel on Thursday. Jessica Anderson of the Sentinel Action Fund. You remember all the great work that they did with Ashley Hayek, America First Policy Institute, and America First Works. And then Larry O'Connor will be here on Thursday. And then Friday, this is a conversation you'll hear nowhere else. Derek Lyons was the staff secretary under Donald Trump during his first terms, and Jordan Karam was his personal aide. I'm going to have them both here to give you guys insight that nobody else will bring you about what it's like to work with him and get stuff done. So when you see now Will Scharf, who, by the way, came on the show, making those announcements about the executive orders, like Derek's going to talk to us about how that stuff happens. So if you're a political junkie like I am, and I hope that's part of the reason you come to the show, is that I'm going to have this conversation with the two of them about what it's like to work with Trump, how he gets information, how he digests information, and nobody else will ever show you this. So that's Friday, obviously a big week ahead of us, but I'm excited for the Friday conversation just because so many people ask me what it's like to work for Donald Trump, how he consumes information, how he interacts with people. Obviously, I can give you my perspective. I try to do that all the time, but Jordan Karam and Derek Lyons are going to do it like nobody else does, and that'll air on Friday. So huge week coming your way. Getting back to CPAC for a second, there was a straw poll. There always is, right? And obviously, we don't have an election. So they asked, who do you want to see run in 2028? Who would you vote for? And it's a straw poll. So this is not scientific, and this is of people that are attending CPAC. But there's, I don't know, close to 10,000, I think. J.D. Vance, 61%. Do you know who the number two was, by the way? Steve Bannon. No offense, but I don't think Steve's ever going to run for office. We'll have him back on the show. I'll ask him point blank. But he doesn't want to run. And then Ron DeSantis at 8%, and no one else even close to that. So what this reaffirms to me is that this is basically J.D. Vance's for the taking. And he's doing a phenomenal job so far. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. But just shows you that we're already there as a movement to say, yeah, J.D. Vance, for all the babies that didn't know why Trump picked him, I think they're all seeing now. He's extremely impressive. Great story. So articulate. run circles around the morons in the media. Anyway, I'm excited. I've known JD for a while. I think he's a great guy, and I'm excited to see him start to move into this position because we need to get ahead of this. And frankly, there might be some kind of nominal primary. We got ways to go. We got midterms first, but like I think that he is the future of the party right now. Obviously, look, we'll go through a process and we'll see, but it's good to know that we have such a deep bench right now, and that right now I would assume he's the leader of it. But in other personnel news, right? I was just excited that Kash Patel was named or confirmed as FBI director. And then what happens last night? It was funny. Almost like 10 minutes after I hang up the phone with President Trump, I look down and I'm like, there's an announcement on Truth Social that Dan Bongino is going to be deputy director of the FBI. Boom. Liberal minds blowing up. I was putting this all over pictures of Dan and I up on social media. I was texting him, dude, this is amazing. Congratulations. If you're a criminal, watch out. Between Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, you might want to rethink your line of work. He's going to be awesome. Dan, as you know, it's funny. Like the media this morning was waking up. MAGA podcaster Dan Bongino. Oh, really? Because, he was a congressional candidate. And before that, he spent years at the FBI. He was a New York City cop, got a ton of law enforcement. And the funny thing is about the podcast, which I think that's meant as a media insult to Dan. When you looked at the coverage of Butler, Pennsylvania, and what went wrong and what was happening, Dan Bongino was at the forefront of dissecting that because he's been in law enforcement. He has amazing sources still in law enforcement. So I know that the media meant it as an insult, MAGA podcaster Dan Bongino. But the truth is this guy's really tough on crime. He's a smart he was a smart Secret Service officer. He's got a background as a New York cop. This is the kind of guy I want leading the FBI, who thinks outside the box, who understands how to get to the bottom of an investigation and who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. It's going to be an incredible team, and I'm excited for that. It's amazing to see how they're like, oh my God, normally it's a career civil servant. Again, to the norms and the traditions. Welcome to the Trump administration, folks. There are no norms or no traditions. It's a joke. Anyway, I am super excited, not because, Dan's been a friend and actually a mentor. When I got into independent media and stuff, Dan Bongino gave me some great advice about what I should prioritize and how, and even with books. He's been a good friend. He's been a good mentor. And I'm excited that think about this, by the way. That guy's got one of, if not at times, the top podcast in the country. Millions and millions of dollars on the line. And he's giving it all up to serve as the deputy director of the FBI. I don't know what the deputy director makes, probably $160,000, $170,000. That's not horrible money, but it's not the millions that he makes. And he built, I've talked to him a million times about his podcast, and he basically lost that congressional race in Maryland and thought he was going to win. It was that close. He had no backup plan. And so he jumped into podcasting before it was cool, then moved to Florida. But I think to myself, God, can you imagine now his kids are grown and all that, but that's a sacrifice, folks, to give it all up. And while the media wants to make these little jabs at him, I thank him for serving our country. It's a huge sacrifice for him and his family. On the flip side of bringing people into the government, Trump now made some big announcements over the weekend as well, that there were some people that would be leaving government service. The leader of that effort over at the Pentagon is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to why C.Q. Brown was removed, but the bottom line is the President of the United States has the right to have the senior advisors, whether it's the EPA or the DOD, that he wants around him to make key decisions to protect the country. So he relieves C.Q. Brown. But the interesting thing is who he's going to replace him with. He announced that retired 3-star General Raising Cane is going to be the next chairman. Now, for those of you who don't know, a couple things that are really interesting. This guy's a retired 3-star. So he's over at the CIA, I think, right now. and they're going to bring him back on active duty. They'll give him his 4th star, and then he'll become the chairman. But when the name got announced, I thought to myself, God, I've heard this before, because Trump always talks early in the administration when he was trying to figure out how to deal with Afghanistan and Iraq. He met Raising Cain coming off the stairs. He was greeted by him. Take a listen to what Dan Cain, Raising Cain, and the story that Trump tells.
I said, what's your name? Sir, my name is Raisin. What the hell kind of a name? I said, Raisin, like the fruit? He goes, yes, sir, Raisin. What's your last name? Cain, Raising Cain. I said, you got to be kidding. It's true. I want to know, why is it going to take 2 years to knock off 2 or 3 or 4%, which is what we had left? It won't, sir. I said, tell me why it won't. It won't, sir. If we attack them in a different manner, we can do it much faster. Okay, General Raising Cain, how fast can... Sir, we can have it totally finished in 1 week. I said, 1 week? I was told 2 years. 1 week. That's right, sir. We're only hitting them from a temporary base in Syria. But if you gave us permission, we could hit them from the back, from the side, from all over, from the base that you're right on right now, sir. They won't know what the hell hit them.
All right. That's who he wants. A doer, a disruptor. I sat in the Situation Room with President Trump as he was given PowerPoint after PowerPoint about what to do in Afghanistan, for example. And it was always like, well, here's basically the course of action that'll allow us to keep doing it. And Trump would get so upset because he's like, why are we doing this? Why are you telling me just that we're going to keep doing what we're doing? He wants someone that can actually get things done. And you heard him talk about the interaction he had with Lieutenant General Dan Raising Cain, his call sign. Because the guy basically said, take the handcuffs off me, allow me to actually go prosecute the bad guys, and I'll get it done. We've got all these silly rules of engagement, and I can't do my job, and I can't win. Trump goes, yeah, boom, get it done. And that's why he's bringing them back, because he wants results. He doesn't want excuses. Anyway, he also fired the chief of naval operations, Lisa Franchetti. The media is all up in arms about her, too, because she's the first female CNO. Okay, this might have been the issue under the Biden administration. You know, the first this, the first that. We always talked about that, right? Identity politics. I think Trump's bottom line is, I see problems, and this is actually the U.S. Naval Institute news. No, like, right-wing organization. So the Navy has been plagued by ship delays, recruiting shortfalls, issues the service faced before Franchetti became CNO. The Navy failed to meet its recruiting goals in fiscal years 2022 and 2023, then did meet them in 2024, the first year under Franchetti. For whatever reason, Trump doesn't feel like she's doing the job. I don't want to speak to that necessarily because I don't know what he sees or saw, but he's making changes. And I will just say this right now, just so we are 100% clear, folks. This isn't the last 3 or 4 star that you're going to see switched out. Trump wants change. He wants his people. He doesn't want excuses anymore. So I know it's not traditional and how the norms go and blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is that this is a president who is not only asking for, but demanding change, efficiencies, effectiveness. And Pete Hegseth, the DOD, the Secretary of Defense, has made it very clear that their number one mission is the mission. It's not DEI. It's not, do you feel good? Do you want a hug? It's making sure that we are a lethal warfighting machine ready to deter our enemies, and if they're stupid enough to attack us, to take them on and defeat them, which is what it should be. Elon Musk had a field day over the weekend, by the way, telling 2 things that came out that are interesting. Number one, he sent out a tweet and said, hey, I want you by Monday at 5 o'clock to tell me 5 things that you've done. 5 things. Now, I will say, that might not be the best, most that timetable may be a little off, right? Who knows? Maybe somebody was on vacation. Maybe they're on maternity leave. I don't know. But the bottom line is that asking federal employees or any employee, send me 5 things you did. There's no, Elon has followed up. He basically was like, I'm not trying to judge you. Just say 5 things. We'll determine later whether or not those are good things or bad things, or whether we have to maybe do this week over week. But there was something that was really interesting that was pointed out over online that I thought made total sense. A lot of the focus has been on the low performers. Rightly so. I mean, if you're not going to work, or in a lot of cases, the President Trump has said he believes that people have a second job. Maybe they're not even showing up, or, so that's attacking the low workers, the low performers. But it also is an opportunity to recognize the high performers, right? If you're writing back, I did this, I accomplished that, I saved this much money, I revamped this program. It's an opportunity for you to shine. These are the people we need to keep. These are the people we need to promote. It's a double-edged sword. What are you afraid of, though? I mean, aside from the fact that if you were on vacation, okay, I get that, and you can write back, I was on vacation, I didn't do anything. Okay, that's allowed. But if you weren't on vacation, think about this. The work day, the work week is 5 days. So could you say you did one thing a day? And even if that one thing is maybe you're, an office manager and you called to get someone to fix the copier. Maybe you replenish supplies. This isn't a high bar. Name 5 things you did. Why is that difficult? If you look around the folks in the media, they're all freaking out. Now, I get it. I will say this. I know a lot of people, because of where I live, who work in the federal government. A lot of the folks that I served with in the military are federal employees, because there are hiring practices that favor veterans. So a lot of folks do go into government service after their military careers. I'm sensitive to the fact that people are losing their job. I feel bad. I mean, maybe you have a family, maybe you don't. Maybe you just, you have to pay your rent. And I don't want anything ill. A lot of folks that I know that work in the government are good people. They do work hard. Some of them are just hampered by the government regulations that don't let them be the best they can be. But we are seemingly in the media to let that focus, right? Starbucks, which I could care less about, just laid off 1,000 people. Big, huge manufacturers over the last several years have announced layoffs, especially during the Biden administration, especially during COVID. Where was the outcry for those people? But when the federal government starts looking and realizing how much waste, fraud, abuse, inefficiencies, duplicity exists, everybody wants to wig out. And I feel bad for these folks. Like, I actually don't want anybody. It's just who I am. But I also think about this. You hear me talk about the debt and deficit all the time. We're $37 trillion in debt. We have a $2 trillion deficit a year, and that amounts to over $100,000 of debt per person. Where has the concern been about that? About what this is doing to us as a country, to the ability to us to fund certain things. We spend more on interest on the debt than our national defense. Why isn't that outrageous? As I said last week, we should be applauding Elon for finding this stuff. And they all want to snipe at him. Oh, he didn't, he was wrong on this number. Okay, whether it was 8 million or 18 million, is that really what we should be focusing on? Or is it the fact that for X number of years, we blew $8 million or whatever that number is? The Democrats keep saying on TV all the time, I hear this recurring theme. We all agree that there's waste. Well, if you agree, then why didn't you do anything ever? Never. You passed appropriations bills. You didn't stop it from happening. You didn't call it out. And now you're answering, oh, well, we all agree. Well, you didn't. For decades, we wasted a ton of money. Just wasted it. And now Donald Trump's getting the job done. It's the same thing going on in Ukraine. For 4 years, no one tried to get these parties together to say, let's end the war. Donald Trump's doing it. Now they're mad about how he's doing it, the process, the pageantry, the imagery, the historical norms. Focus on the end state. What do you want? A more effective, efficient government? Or do you want everyone to feel good? Do you want the end of the cessation of war and killing and dying in Ukraine? Or do you care about how many people are seated at a table and in what seat they hold? I care about the outcomes. And sometimes it may not always be pretty. But for too long, we as the American people have been told, oh, it's okay, or it can't get done, or we always do it this way. Finally, we've got somebody that's willing to shake things up. When I talked to the president last night, I told him that we have been waiting for somebody to come in and to get the job done and stop giving us excuses. And he is that man.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.